The study of prejudice in psychology extensively explores how and why people categorize themselves into distinct groups based on countless characteristics or motivations. This research is crucial because group affiliation frequently leads to an adversarial, us versus them mentality. Interestingly, this can occur even in minimal groups, where people are randomly assigned without any shared traits, such as simply being labeled Group A or Group B. If you belong to Group A, you'll likely favor fellow Group A members in competitions or decision-making. This suggests a fundamental human tendency to perceive others in terms of group membership, creating an us versus them dichotomy. Evolutionary theorists propose that this predisposition is an adaptive outcome of natural selection over vast periods. Humans who form groups were more likely to survive, reproduce, and ensure the safety and development of their offspring, thereby passing on their genes. Now let's talk about prejudice directed toward groups relocating to what we consider our home. This type of prejudice is known as anti-immigrant prejudice. Even in the US, a nation built by immigrants, citizens have shown prejudice against numerous incoming groups. This demonstrates that even a country founded on immigration is not immune to biases against newcomers. Anti-immigrant prejudice has a long history. For example, during the early 20th century, anti-Italian and anti-Irish sentiment surged in the US. Moreover, prejudice against Chinese immigrants intensified severely in the late 1800s. This prejudice was legally formalized by Congress in the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Psychological factors that contribute to anti-immigrant prejudice. Number 1. Social dominance orientation. Some people believe that society should naturally be divided into the haves and the have-nots. They view a hierarchical structure among people as both natural and desirable. These people are often described as having a high degree of social dominance orientation. In contrast, people with low social dominance orientation hold the opposite view. They believe society should be based on equality, with no inherent hierarchy. People high in social dominance orientation tend to be more prejudiced against people in outgroups, such as immigrants. Number 2, realistic conflict theory. A primary driver of anti-immigration attitudes is the perception that immigrants compete with the native population for limited resources. These resources can include jobs, housing, land, and even potential partners. This perceived competition fosters resentment towards immigrants, which then manifests as prejudice between the groups. This idea forms the core of realistic conflict theory. Research, including both laboratory and field studies, has provided support for this theory. A 2024 study by Xenophobia revealed an interesting and nuanced relationship. Communities prioritizing resources that benefit the community and its vulnerable members tend to exhibit lower levels of prejudice against immigrants. Communities emphasizing resources linked to security and localism are more likely to show prejudice towards immigrants. Number 3, scapegoat theory. People sometimes perceive that their own life and the circumstances of their group, whether defined by race, gender, age, or other shared characteristics, are worse than those of another group. This perceived disparity can lead to resentment and anger. Consequently, people may blame the other group for the unfavorable situations experienced by their own group and in their personal lives. This phenomenon is known as scapegoat theory. While seemingly logical, empirical evidence for this theory is not consistently strong. For instance, studies have shown that frustrated people do not necessarily express more resentment toward disliked groups than toward liked groups. Number 4, right-wing authoritarianism. People with a specific set of personality traits are more prone to prejudice against certain groups. Bob Altemeyer's research identified these individuals as right-wing authoritarians. Politically, they lean heavily toward conservatism. They also favor limiting individual freedoms, adhere to traditional religious beliefs, and advocate for harsher punishments for criminals. So, it's not surprising that studies indicate right-wing authoritarians exhibit greater prejudice against immigrants. Number 5, religion. Most religions advocate for peace, harmony, and respect. However, history ironically reveals that religion has often fueled wars, inhumanity, and atrocities. These acts arise from perceived differences in religious values. Research indicates a correlation between strict adherence to religious beliefs and increased intolerance towards those with differing values and faiths, regardless of the specific religion.